Hey, we're back. I'm your host, BKP, and we're at Sycamore Crossing in downtown Blue Ridge. A little cool this morning, right, Dr. Whaley?
Yeah, it's wonderful. You need a jacket.
Did you
gotta go into Broken Bow and get you a jacket.
Did you prescribe this morning? Nice cool morning?
Oh, yeah, that's good. It's good for your...
It feels like something you would do.
Yeah, get your blood flowing, right?
Good morning, Dr. Whaley. Glad to have you. And we also want to thank North Georgia Cancer Specialist up here, affiliated with Northside Hospital, with this segment. Well, okay, now you have charts, graphs, pictures, you got everything all over, so I know you have big news for us today. What's your opening statement of the day? I always wait for it on Friday.
Two real quick ones. You were talking about the pecker stories.
Whoa.
And you'll remember that.
I'm sorry.
I told you about when my brother was confirmed as a federal judge under Clinton, and the Republicans were not confirming federal judges, and he stepped out of the interview room, and one of the guys said, "Well, Judge Whaley, you've been talking to us for 3 hours. You've answered our questions really well. Is there anything in your background that might embarrass this administration during your confirmation hearings?" And he stepped back into the room and he said, "Well, I was divorced for 12 years of my very successful legal career, and I flew all over the country in my own airplane, and I've done quite a few things I wouldn't want my mother to know about, but I haven't done anything that would embarrass this president," meaning Clinton. That all of us have stories that we wouldn't want our mama to know. And I've told you a couple of Waylon Jennings stories he wouldn't want his mama to know. So I'm sure there's stuff in that safe that people wouldn't want their mama to know, and it ought to stay in the safe.
Well,
I
think so much of what's going on is just what they think will make good TV, is my opinion.
Well, some of those stories would make it good TV for 30 minutes, but it ought to stay there.
Yeah, but that's all they're interested in, not the good of the country and whether there's really any legal recourse whatsoever. So, better not get too deep.
Okay, I'm gonna go one more because
okay.
you mentioned that this young woman was murdered by an illegal alien, and I listened to Geraldo last night saying it could have been done by a Baptist or a Presbyterian or a Green guy or whatever it was. Yes, it could have been, and they all would have been legal. It would not have happened to that woman if this man had not been there, and he was not supposed to be there. So going on and saying that you're painting a whole group of people with the same brush, or you're indicting 11 million people. No, they're only indicting one guy who should not have been in the country. It wouldn't have happened otherwise, and that's enough. You want to talk about rapid heartbeat?
Let's start with that. Yes, I agree 100%.
All right.
This question must be from me. No, it's a joke. I'm in my early 30s, and the other day I had a sharp pains in my right arm, racing heart, and some dizziness out of the blue. Someone suggests it could be a kind of anxiety attack of sorts. Could this be true? If not, what could have caused it?
Can you put up that first one that's got the EKG on it? Every week I try to emphasize to people, don't be your own doctor. The answer to the question is, could it be anxiety? And the answer is yes, but it's not anxiety until it's proven to not be something else. Now, you're going to see a chart up here that is an EKG. That's how you make the diagnosis of rapid heartbeat medically. And then the second thing that's going to be put up are two examples of how you check your pulse. So the fact that you think your heart is racing is not a fact until either you check your pulse at your wrist for 15 seconds, multiply it by 4, and it's above 100 or 110, or failing that, you take your fingers and place it on your left carotid, which is a good place, count for 15 seconds and multiply by 4. Don't mash on the right side or you'll hit your carotid body and you might faint. So if you indeed have a rapid heartbeat, and if you indeed do have this pain within your arm, you then have got to have more explanation than this might be anxiety. Now, I'm pulling out here. I didn't give you this big old chart because it was too long. But I'm going to read the most common list of things that cause it. And anxiety is way down at the bottom. Reaction to medication, congenital heart abnormality, you'll like the next one, alcohol, cocaine, caffeine, recreational drugs, abnormalities of your electrolytes, in other words, you sweated too much, you're taking diuretics, all sorts of heart disease, high blood pressure, overactive thyroid, smoking or vaping or any of those things, energy drinks, Amanda, energy drinks, lung disease, and lastly, when you are tense or anxious, your adrenaline goes up, and it indeed can cause hyperventilation, rapid heartbeat, and some of these symptoms. Now, people say, well, I'm not psychiatric or anything. What do you mean by that? My best example, and I want you to listen to this carefully, Amanda. You are driving down the highway 50 miles an hour, minding your own business, and your heart rate is 65, your blood pressure is absolutely normal, and a kid or a dog starts to run out in front of you and you slam your foot on the brake, and in 1/10 of a second, your heart rate's 150 and your blood pressure is 140/90. So that tense emotional event, bang, runs your heart rate up and runs your blood pressure up. So now if you just got real kind of low-grade anxiety and you breathe 10 times a minute normally, but you're a little bit anxious and you're breathing 10.5 times a minute or 11 times a minute, you can't tell you're breathing faster than normal. Nobody around you can tell you're breathing faster than normal. And over a period of 6, 8, 12, 24, 36 hours of breathing only 1/2 breath per minute higher than normal, you then become alkalotic. Then you become anxious, then you have rapid heartbeat, then you may have numbness in your arms. But you only diagnose that after you've ruled out those 10 other things that I just read. And I just encourage you to, when somebody in their 30s is having a rapid heartbeat and dizziness and chest awareness and arm numbness, don't go say, oh, well, this is I'm anxious about something. It's really something that, if it's real, if you check your pulse rate, you check it's real, and if it lasts 1 minute, if it lasts 3, doesn't make a difference how long it lasts. You need to go talk to Ray Tidman and your family doc about it before you attribute it to anxiety or to nervousness. There.
Okay, again, thank you, Georgia Cancer Specialist, North Georgia Cancer Specialist, affiliated with Northside Hospital, for our segment. And our next question. I have been diagnosed with stage 3 angiosarcoma. Is that it? Did I get that?
Yeah, it is. Okay. It could be a stage 3 anything. So,
but
why don't you just say cancer? That's easy for you.
Is that?
That's stage 3 cancer. That's the real point.
The doctor has talked about possibly wanting to put a port in my neck to help with treatments. Is this safe? Are there other concerns I should have about healing properly after the port is removed?
Now, Amanda, I didn't see those EKGs and things on my screen over here. Did they ever get up? They did? Okay, I must not have been watching too good. First of all, you should be grateful that the technology for a port device exists. Now, I don't want to emphasize how old I am, but when I began my training, there were no plastic catheters of any type. And to give IV chemotherapy or blood transfusions or anything else that was a short-term need for an access, we had great big old needles that we sterilized by boiling them. You remember maybe a long time ago going in the doctor's office and there was this little thing of boiling water, and they turned it up and took a thing out, and we would have to stick it in the vein there. And that's the way you administered blood or you administered IV fluids. Well, when you're going to be taking treatment for cancer or chemotherapy, you're talking about 6 months of going to the doctor once a week and having your blood drawn and having stuff given to you. And if you stop and think about that, that's going to be several hundred sticks of your veins. And there's hardly anybody that can have that good a vein to be able to do it. So in my early days of training, to be able to administer treatment for cancer, we had to do what was called a cut down. It was a surgical procedure by infiltrating this, clean it all off, put on masks and gloves. It didn't do it in the operating room generally, but did it in a sterile treatment area. Then we would infiltrate with Novocaine, make an incision about 2 inches long, go down on this big arm vein that you probably don't see in your arm, but you see at the health club with those guys lifting weights. Then stick a plastic catheter in there that ran around to the heart, sutured it up, and it was then had to keep it clean. You could get infection in the thing, and it was a mess. So now I'm going to go and put up that one that's got all those different types of things and shows the chest there in the middle. You got that one? All right. When you are going to have prolonged antibiotic treatment, I think you know, my wife was recently operated on and had to have antibiotics for a while. They have to be given in the vein. Over this time, from when we used to have to stick these needles in there, the very next thing that they came up with to do was a big old fat needle. It was 16 gauge. It had a plastic catheter went through it, and we stuck you underneath the clavicle and ran it around to your heart. And the complications were you could hit the artery here and bleed to death. You could collapse your lung, but it was a lot safer than what we were doing over there. Now, as we come to time, have you got the chart up? If you look at that chart there, those are various sorts of plastic catheters that can be placed safely in the vein, don't cause you to bleed, aren't next to arteries, and are out here in your peripheral body somewhere. They're good for a week or 2 weeks of IV antibiotics. They're good for immediately after a hip replacement or something where you have to get different treatments that are going to last a month, but they don't last for 6 months. Put up that second one there that's got the shows the needle sticking through the thing there. A port device, what they're talking about, is a thing that sits underneath the skin. The catheter goes up to the neck and then goes down into the heart. Put up the next one, which is the one that shows a port and then a quarter. You got that? Okay, so there's a quarter. There's a single access port. See, it's quite small. Sits underneath the skin. That first picture showed them going up to it. Now this is, remember how much it hurts out here. You jump, you want to jump. They just walk up here, paint that thing with sterilizing solution, take that little square needle, stick it down in the rubber cap that goes in the top there, that rubber cap. They can leave that needle in there for a week and infuse stuff, then pull the little needle out, and that thing can stay in there for a long time. Now, I'll tell you an interesting story. Generally has to stay there for the whole 6 months of chemotherapy. I have a patient in my Atlanta practice that when he began treatment, when these things were first invented, about 25 years ago or so, he was the age group champion for what we call platform tennis in Georgia and was nationally ranked. He had Hodgkin's disease. When the Hodgkin's disease treatment was over, it was the week that the platform tennis tournament was going to occur, and he wanted us to leave that port in because he was afraid if they took the port out it would slow him down and he wouldn't be able to play. And he won the state championship and he was second ranked in the nation. He has left that port in for 25 years, and we flush that port 4 or 5 times a year, and we use it to draw blood when we see him, and it's still there. A couple of years ago I had a guy I was treating here who was the skeet champion of Tennessee. He had his chemotherapy in the morning, and the skeet championship was starting in about 5 days. We took his port out that afternoon so that he could shoot in the next week. So that's opposite ends of the scale. Take that port out the minute you finish chemotherapy, leave it in for 25 years. We generally like to leave it in for 6 months after you stop chemotherapy, in case you happen to have a recurrence or a relapse. So to answer the question, you should be grateful that the port device exists. It saves you hundreds of complications that could occur if you were to use one of the other alternatives that were available before the port was invented. And lastly, when you take it out, there's nothing wrong. The healing is boom, like that. Things removed in 5 minutes by the invasive radiologist. They put a bandage over it. They don't even sew it up, and it's healed up quick enough so 4 days later you can participate in the skeet championships for Tennessee. Now, how's that? Is that good enough? Is that enough, Amanda?
There's a lot of charts there. I was watching them early there, and it was very. No, I mean I appreciate that, because at home you definitely can see what Dr. Whaley was talking about there. Well, we thank you very much. So, what is new in the medical world today, or what have you brought that you want to discuss?
All right. Well, this school just started, and to go to school, you know, you have to fill out that form about your immunizations. And I think we talked about this about 3 weeks ago. Yesterday, it was announced by the CDC. You remember last year I was saying there's a measles epidemic. You remember when we talked about that? And the measles epidemic was primarily in young adults and in the elderly. As of July the 20th, which was what, 4 weeks ago, the epidemic this year has reached the entire epidemic of last year. And the states that have got it in major amount, enough to bother the CDC, include Florida, that butts us, Tennessee, that abuts us, Arkansas, that's the South. So it's not, you remember last year it was way out there in Washington State and Oregon. Remember, that's where all those measles cases were. Well, this year they're here. And these people that say, and here we are talking about the flat earth and you didn't get to the moon, but they're people that my wife, like some people, my wife's friends maybe I'll say, who say that the pharmaceutical industry and the government's putting poisons in these daggone vaccinations, and I don't want to take this vaccination, it's going to cause my kid to have autism. Truth of the matter is, there is absolutely no evidence that there is anything in vaccines that causes autism, mental retardation, or ADHD. In the flu vaccine, if you're allergic to eggs, you don't take it. If you have an absolute allergy to mercury or mercurochrome, then some vaccines you can't take. But these vaccines don't cause autism, and they don't cause your hair to fall out or your teeth to go bad or anything. They absolutely prevent fatal illnesses. And we have gotten to the point where people are not immunizing their children because of these fallacious opinions. And now it comes back to haunt you with the whooping cough business. Now, all us grandparents, when your kids have a baby, your pediatrician won't let you go see the baby unless you get your whooping cough shot. So we'll go ahead and take the whooping cough shot, but our children are not giving their kids the whooping cough shot, and they're not giving their kids the measles shot. So I want to emphasize that this measles epidemic is going to be bigger this year. We don't have to worry about it, but it's going to happen here. Second thing I want to say is that we have this hands-free telephone thing in Georgia. Started July the 1st. Monday of this week, a study was done, and I'm going to get a lot of criticism from kids on this. They looked at the 35 states that have hands-free laws. And Amanda, I want you to give me an answer. What percentage of teenagers between the ages of 16 and 18 who are young and driving, you remember I tell you they shouldn't have passengers, they shouldn't drive at night and so forth, what percentage of teenagers between 16 and 18 text regularly while driving?
I would guess about
70%. 50% admitted, maybe 70. When you get above 25 and get to adults, falls like a rocket. And that's in states that have the law. So when I tell you, when you put your kid in a car at 16, they shouldn't drive at night, they can't have passengers. You remember I took the radios out of the cars of my kids. you ought to take them and not let them drive with their cell phone turned on. And if you've got the right app on your phone, you can see where they went, and you can know whether or not they got their cell phone turned off. But they shouldn't have their cell phone on in the automobile, period. Is that enough of those? Do you want to talk about?
No, I don't want to gloss over. You took the radio out on your kids?
Oh, yeah, every one of them. I bought the car, took the radio out. If you look at our tags, my license tags were Whale 1, Whale 2, and Whale 3. And I had 3 kids driving at the same time. And I said, girls, I'm president of the Medical Association of Atlanta. I'm chairman of the board at West Paces Hospital, and I'm chairman of the Crime Commission. And I've stood up before every one of those groups, and I've showed those license tags. And I've told them, if they see anybody driving fast, if they see you driving with a passenger, if they see tobacco, that car gets parked.
So you sent out Whale 1, Whale 2, and Whale 3.
All my cars.
And then you went and told them all.
Everybody
They took
in
the
Atlanta.
radio out?
Took the radio out. I only put the radio in after they'd been driving for 1 year.
Leave the 8-track in?
The 8-track.
No. Oh, and by the way, all their kids were getting BMWs, and I bought 10-year-old huge GM cars. I had an old Cadillac. I had a 10-year-old Cadillac, a 10-year-old Oldsmobile, and a 10-year-old Buick, so that they would look different. Nobody would get, mix up the kids. But it was Whale 1, Whale 2, and Whale 3. And they were gigantic cars, and the kids at the private school where they were going said, "Are you scholarship kids? Y'all are driving those ugly cars." And they were all driving BMWs and said, "No, my daddy wants me in a big old car where I'll be bigger than who hits me. And, hey, can you give me a ride home?" I said, "No." I said, "I can't carry passengers. I've been driving for a year." I mean, I was tough. And if they violated that rule, I meant it. They were going to have, they lived close enough to ride a bicycle or walk to school. Now, can you imagine what a kid in private school would get in the way of peer pressure if he had to walk to school? Man, I never had a kid get a ticket or drive fast or park in the wrong spot or anything. I mean, it was tough.
Okay. Okay.
Enough of that. Okay, I'm gonna give you one more.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you one more.
Whale 1, Whale 2, and Whale 3.
Yeah,
you see those license plates, you let me know.
All right, I'm gonna give you one. I'm gonna give you one more. Yeah, look at that. Just that one there is Whale 3. I've taken it off of their cars now because they live in New York.
No, yours is just whaling.
Huh?
Yours is just whaling.
Okay,
Oh,
let me get to the
Okay, I'm gonna get every one of us here have benefited from the fact that the longevity of Americans is going up. I've said here before that when Social Security started, men died at 57, women died at 62. Now we're living long enough to get knee replacements and stuff. Last year, the life expectancy in the United States fell.
Yes.
Does anybody know why?
No, why? But I do know.
Opiate overdoses were sufficiently large to impact the life expectancy of the whole nation, and it fell. Opiate overdoses. Now that ought to get you.
Okay, we're gonna leave on that.
That's enough of that.
We're gonna leave on that note. But I appreciate Dr. Whaley. I appreciate the North Georgia Cancer Specialist affiliated with Northside Hospital for sponsoring this segment. Ask the Doc. You can find us on Fetch Your News FYN TV YouTube channel. Find our YouTube channel, and we always put these segments up so you can share with your friends. Ask the Doc on our YouTube channel. We'll be right back after these messages with our all-star political panel. I wonder what we will talk about, but we'll try to find something right after this break.
Ace is your helpful place for paint and home goods, tools, outdoor living,